In a sport where greatness is defined by the ability to conquer the best, there's one fighter who has been making waves like no other, Khamzat Chimaev. From a war-torn village in Chechnya to an undefeated 19-0 streak in the UFC, his rise has been nothing short of meteoric. But this is just the beginning. The UFC world is on notice and Khamzat is coming for the ultimate prize, the title. Let's take a deeper dive into the unstoppable force that is Khamzat Chimaev, and why he's destined to leave his mark on the sport forever. If you've been following Khamzat's journey, now's the perfect time to subscribe to our channel. Stay updated with all the latest news, documentaries, and exclusive insights on the fighter who's taking the UFC by storm. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss an update on Khamzat Chimaev and other rising stars of MMA. Join the fight with us. Hit that like button and let us know your thoughts in the comments. Khamzat Chimaev's rise in UFC. Khamzat Chimaev burst onto the UFC scene in a way that had never been seen before. In just 66 days he fought 3 times, dominating every opponent with an aggressive, relentless style that left the MMA world in awe. His ability to control fights, absorb almost no damage and finish his opponents quickly made him one of the most exciting prospects in UFC history. When Chimaev made his UFC debut on July 16, 2020, against John Phillips, many fans were unfamiliar with his name. But within minutes he grabbed everyone's attention. He took Phillips down almost immediately and unleashed a brutal ground-and-pound attack. Chimaev landed 124 significant strikes while taking only 2 in return. It was a completely one-sided performance, and he won via submission in the second round. Just 10 days later, Chimaev stepped into the octagon again, this time facing Rhys McKee. The result was even more dominant. He finished McKee in the first round with another overwhelming display of wrestling and striking. In doing so, Chimaev set the record for the fastest turnaround between UFC wins in modern history. Fighters usually take months to recover and prepare between fights, but Chimaev proved he was built differently. His third fight came against Gerald Meerschaert, a veteran with over 40 professional fights. Some critics believed that this would be a real test for Chimaev, as Meerschaert had solid grappling and experience. However, Chimaev shocked everyone by knocking him out with a single punch in just 17 seconds. With this victory he showed that he wasn't just a wrestler, he had serious knockout power as well. This incredible run made him one of the most talked about fighters in the UFC. Fans and analysts started comparing him to legends like Khabib Nurmagomedov due to his dominant wrestling and relentless pressure. However, Chimaev had a different style. More aggressive, willing to strike and looking to finish fights as quickly as possible. Beyond his skills, Chimaev's confidence also made him stand out. He would call out multiple fighters at once, showing no fear of any challenge. His famous phrase, "I will smash everybody," became a slogan for his rise in the UFC. In just a few months, Chimaev went from an unknown fighter to one of the most feared competitors in the sport. He had proven that he could dominate multiple opponents without taking damage, and his hunger for more fights made him a fan favorite. His rapid success was a reminder that in the UFC, some fighters don't need years to make an impact. Sometimes all it takes is a few dominant performances to become a superstar. Chimaev's rise in the UFC was nothing short of extraordinary, and it was just the beginning of what promised to be an incredible career. Here's the expanded version of the second point. Early life in war-torn Chechnya. Khamzat Chimaev's journey to becoming a UFC star started in one of the toughest environments imaginable, war-torn Chechnya. Born on May 1, 1994 in the small town of Binoyurt, he grew up in a region that had been devastated by 2 brutal wars. The First Chechen War, 1994 to 1996, and the Second Chechen War, 1999 to 2009, left the country in ruins with constant military conflict, destroyed infrastructure, and a struggling economy. For many children in Chechnya, daily life was filled with fear and uncertainty. Bombings, shootings, and military patrols were a regular sight. Families lived in survival mode, never knowing if their homes would be safe the next day. Chimaev was too young to fully understand the war, but the chaos around him shaped his mentality. He learned early on that life was a fight, and only the strongest survived. Despite the hardships, his family did their best to provide for him and his siblings. His mother played a key role in raising him, making sacrifices to ensure that he and his brother had food and opportunities. But life in Chechnya was unforgiving. Work was scarce and opportunities for a better future were limited. Like many boys in Chechnya, Khamzat found an escape in wrestling. The sport was deeply rooted in Chechen culture, and young men saw it as a way to build discipline, toughness, and pride. At just 5 years old, Chimaev started wrestling, training in small, overcrowded gyms with minimal equipment. The training was intense, with coaches pushing young wrestlers to their limits. But for Chimaev, the hard work was nothing compared to the struggles of daily life. Wrestling became his way out, a path to something greater. As he grew older, his natural talent became clear. He dominated junior wrestling competitions in Chechnya, showing remarkable strength, endurance, and an unbreakable fighting spirit. His performances caught the attention of local coaches, who saw his potential to become an elite-level wrestler. However, life in Chechnya remained difficult. The country was still recovering from war, and his family wanted a better future. At the age of 19, Khamzat, along with his mother and sister, made the life-changing decision to move to Sweden. The move was not easy, leaving behind friends, family, and everything he had known, but it was necessary. Sweden offered safety, better opportunities, and a chance for Khamzat to fully develop his wrestling career. Little did he know that this decision would set him on the path to becoming one of the most feared fighters in the world. The struggles of his childhood had shaped him into a warrior, and in Sweden he would finally get the chance to prove it to the world. Wrestling background and migration to Sweden. Khamzat Chimaev's journey in combat sports began at an incredibly young age. At just 5 years old, he started wrestling, a sport deeply ingrained in Chechen culture. Wrestling wasn't just a sport in Chechnya, it was a way of life. Boys were expected to be strong, disciplined, and resilient, and wrestling was one of the best ways to prove that. From the start, Khamzat showed exceptional talent. He was naturally strong, quick, and relentless on the mat. His coaches quickly noticed his potential, pushing him through grueling training sessions that tested both his physical and mental toughness. The training conditions were far from luxurious: old mats, small spaces, and minimal resources, but that didn't stop him. As he grew older, Chimaev became one of the top junior wrestlers in Chechnya. He dominated local competitions, often defeating opponents with ease. His wrestling style was aggressive and overwhelming, a style that would later define his MMA career. He trained with older, more experienced wrestlers, learning techniques that made him nearly unstoppable in matches. His dream was to become a world-class wrestler and represent his homeland on an international level. However, life in Chechnya was still difficult. The country was recovering from war and opportunities were limited. His family wanted a better future, and in 2013, when Khamzat was 19, they made a life-changing decision: to move to Sweden. His mother and sister were already there, and he joined them, leaving behind his childhood home in search of new opportunities. Moving to Sweden was a major shift. Everything was different: the language, the culture, the climate. But Khamzat was not the type to back down from challenges. He quickly adapted and resumed his wrestling career, training at local clubs in his new home. Despite being in a foreign country, his goal remained the same: to become the best. In Sweden, Chimaev's wrestling ability stood out immediately. He competed in national tournaments, dominating opponents and winning multiple championships. His record in Swedish freestyle wrestling was astonishing. He won 3 national titles and competed in different weight classes, even wrestling in the 86 kilograms and 92 kilograms categories despite weighing much less. His sheer dominance was so overwhelming that he barely gave up any points in his matches, showcasing the same level of control that he would later display in the UFC. During this period, Khamzat began to hear more and more about MMA. He was inspired by fighters like Khabib Nurmagomedov and Alexander Gustafsson and saw an opportunity to take his wrestling skills to a new level. He started training at the All-Stars Training Center in Stockholm, one of Sweden's best MMA gyms, home to elite fighters. It was there that he met UFC veteran Alexander Gustafsson, who saw his potential and encouraged him to pursue MMA. Khamzat's wrestling foundation gave him an immediate advantage in MMA. His strength, control, and relentless pressure made him a nightmare for training partners. In just a few years, he would go from a top wrestler in Sweden to one of the most feared MMA fighters in the world. Motivation to fight, love for his mother. Behind every great fighter, there's a deeper motivation that pushes them to train harder, fight smarter, and never give up. For Khamzat Chimaev, that motivation is his mother. Growing up in Chechnya, life was tough. The region had been through wars and survival was a daily struggle. Khamzat's mother played a crucial role in raising him and his siblings, ensuring they had food to eat and a roof over their heads, even when times were difficult. She was a strong and selfless woman, always putting her children first. Khamzat recalls how his mother would sacrifice her own meals so that her children wouldn't go hungry. Even when food was scarce, she made sure that her kids ate first. This left a lasting impact on him. He saw her struggles and wanted to change their lives. He promised himself that one day he would earn enough money to give her the life she deserved. When Khamzat moved to Sweden, he carried that promise with him. The transition to a new country was not easy, but he knew why he was doing it. He didn't just want to succeed for himself, he wanted to make his mother proud and take care of her. This became his driving force in wrestling and later in MMA. As he trained, he often thought about his mother and the sacrifices she made. Every tough session, every injury, and every exhausting moment was worth it if it brought him one step closer to his goal. He was determined to become a champion, not just for the glory but for his family. Even after reaching the UFC, Khamzat remained humble and focused on his purpose. He often speaks about his mother in interviews, expressing his deep love and respect for her. Whenever he wins a fight, he dedicates his success to her, knowing that everything he does is for her well-being. His story is a reminder that true greatness doesn't come from money or fame, it comes from having a purpose bigger than yourself. For Khamzat, that purpose is his mother, and as long as she's watching, he will keep fighting, keep winning, and keep making her proud. Dominance in Swedish wrestling. Before stepping into the MMA world, Khamzat Chimaev made a name for himself as one of Sweden's most dominant wrestlers. His wrestling career was nothing short of extraordinary, showcasing his incredible strength, technique, and relentless work ethic. After moving to Sweden at 19, Khamzat quickly found success in freestyle wrestling. Competing in the Swedish national championships, he didn't just win, he dominated. He won 3 national titles and remained unbeaten in the competition, rarely conceding a single point. This level of control over his opponents proved just how skilled he was on the mat. His wrestling wasn't just about strength, it was about pressure. Khamzat's ability to dictate the pace and break his opponents mentally made him a terrifying competitor. His relentless style forced his opponents into deep waters, leaving them exhausted and unable to mount any offense. Even experienced wrestlers struggled against his non-stop attacks. One of the most impressive feats of his wrestling career was his ability to compete across different weight classes. He won championships in both 86 kilograms and 92 kilograms categories, proving his versatility and dominance. Regardless of the opponent's size, Khamzat found a way to impose his will and control the match from start to finish. Even after transitioning to MMA, Khamzat continued to showcase his wrestling skills. His grappling became the foundation of his fighting style, allowing him to take down and overwhelm opponents with ease. His success in Swedish wrestling was a clear sign of what was to come, a dominant force in the world of mixed martial arts. His time in wrestling shaped him into the relentless fighter he is today. The discipline, toughness, and work ethic he developed on the mat translated perfectly into the octagon. Every takedown, every slam, and every moment of control inside the cage is a reflection of the years he spent perfecting his craft in Swedish wrestling. For Khamzat Chimaev, wrestling wasn't just a sport, it was a way to prepare for greatness. And as he moved forward in his MMA career, it became clear that his wrestling dominance was only the beginning of something much bigger. Early MMA dominance. Khamzat Chimaev's transition from wrestling to mixed martial arts was nothing short of explosive. From the moment he stepped into the cage, it was clear that he was a special talent. His early MMA career was defined by sheer dominance, taking opponents down, smashing them with ground and pound, and finishing fights quickly. Chimaev made his professional debut in 2018 in Sweden, and he wasted no time making a statement. His first fight lasted less than a round as he secured a takedown and overwhelmed his opponent with vicious strikes. This became a pattern in his early fights: fast finishes, complete control, and minimal damage taken. His ability to blend wrestling with striking was remarkable. While many wrestlers struggle with adapting to MMA, Chimaev made it look effortless. He would shoot for takedowns with lightning speed, drag his opponents to the mat, and unleash a relentless barrage of punches and elbows. His aggressive style left his opponents helpless, often looking for a way out before the fight even reached the second round. One of the key moments in his early career came when he joined Brave Combat Federation, Brave CF, one of the biggest MMA promotions outside the UFC. Fighting at both welterweight and middleweight, he continued his path of destruction. In Brave CF, he faced tougher competition, but the results remained the same: dominant performances, brutal finishes, and complete control. His reputation began to grow rapidly in the MMA world. Coaches, fighters, and analysts started to take notice of this Chechen-born Swedish fighter who was making everyone look like amateurs. His relentless pressure, incredible cardio, and fearless approach to fighting made him a nightmare matchup for anyone. Perhaps the most impressive part of his early MMA career was his finishing rate. He wasn't just winning fights, he was finishing them in devastating fashion. Whether it was through ground and pound TKOs or submissions, Chimaev made sure that none of his fights went the distance. By the time the UFC came calling, he had built an undefeated record and established himself as one of the most dangerous prospects in the sport. His dominance in Brave CF and Sweden set the stage for what was to come in the UFC. The world had yet to see the full power of Khamzat Chimaev, but it was clear, this was only the beginning of something special. Brave CF knockout and UFC call-up. Khamzat Chimaev's performances in Brave Combat Federation, Brave CF, were nothing short of spectacular. He ran through opponents with ease, displaying an overwhelming mix of wrestling, striking, and relentless pressure. But one fight in particular changed everything: his brutal knockout victory over Ikram Aliskerov at Brave CF 23. Aliskerov was no ordinary opponent. A four-time world champion in Sambo, he was considered one of the toughest challenges in the division. Many believed his grappling would be strong enough to neutralize Chimaev's wrestling. However, Chimaev had other plans. From the opening bell, Chimaev marched forward, showing no respect for Aliskerov's skills. Instead of relying on his wrestling, he showcased his evolving striking. Within minutes, he landed a devastating right uppercut that sent Aliskerov crashing to the canvas. It was a one-punch knockout, fast, brutal, and absolutely dominant. The MMA world took notice. This victory was a turning point in Chimaev's career. He was already seen as a promising talent, but this performance proved that he was more than just a wrestler. He had knockout power as well. His stock skyrocketed, and suddenly he was on the radar of the Ultimate Fighting Championship (UFC). At the time, Chimaev was scheduled to fight for the Brave CF Championship. However, the COVID-19 pandemic disrupted the event, delaying his shot at the title. But as one door closed, another opened. The UFC had been searching for new talent, and after witnessing Chimaev's dominant run in Brave CF, they wasted no time offering him a contract. For Chimaev, this was a dream come true. Just a few years earlier, he was an unknown fighter training in small gyms in Sweden. Now he was about to step onto the biggest stage in mixed martial arts. The UFC's welterweight and middleweight divisions had no idea what was coming. The signing of Chimaev marked the beginning of a new era. He wasn't just entering the UFC, he was coming to take over. With an undefeated record, unmatched confidence, and a hunger for greatness, he was ready to show the world that Borz had arrived. Historic UFC debut and fastest turnaround victory. Khamzat Chimaev wasted no time making an impact in the UFC. The world got its first real taste of Borz on July 16, 2020, when he stepped into the UFC octagon for the first time at UFC Fight Island 1 in Abu Dhabi. His opponent was John Phillips, a powerful striker known for his knockout ability. But Chimaev had no intention of letting the fight become a striking battle. From the opening bell, Chimaev shot for a takedown within seconds, putting Phillips on his back. What followed was sheer domination. Chimaev controlled Phillips completely, raining down punches and elbows while maintaining an overwhelming top position. He outstruck Phillips 124-2, an absurdly one-sided beatdown. In the second round, he finished the fight with a Darce choke, securing his first UFC victory in dominant fashion. But Chimaev wasn't satisfied with just one win. 10 days later, on July 26, 2020, he fought again at UFC Fight Island 3, the fastest turnaround between UFC wins in the modern era. This time he faced Rhys McKee, a tough fighter making his UFC debut. Once again, Chimaev rushed forward, took his opponent down almost instantly, and delivered relentless ground and pound. In just 3 minutes and 9 seconds, he secured another stoppage victory, finishing McKee by TKO. The MMA world was in shock. Nobody had ever dominated two opponents in such a short span. Fighters usually need months to recover, train, and prepare for their next bout, but Chimaev made it look effortless. His back-to-back wins cemented his reputation as the UFC's hottest new prospect. Dana White, the UFC president, was blown away by Chimaev's performance. He praised the young fighter, calling him one of the most special fighters I've ever seen. Fans, media, and fellow fighters all started taking notice. Who was this guy who could fight twice in 10 days and barely get hit? Chimaev's rapid rise wasn't just about winning, it was about how he won. He completely suffocated his opponents with wrestling, barely took any damage, and finished fights with ease. His dominance made people wonder, was this the next UFC superstar? With 2 wins in just 10 days, Chimaev had arrived. But he wasn't done yet. Bigger challenges were ahead, and the UFC world was about to witness the unstoppable rise of Borz. One-punch KO over Gerald Meerschaert. After his historic 2-fight domination in just 10 days, Khamzat Chimaev was already gaining a reputation as one of the most dangerous fighters in the UFC. But some critics still questioned whether he could handle more experienced competition. Many believed his wins came against weaker opponents, and he had yet to prove himself against a battle-tested UFC veteran. That opportunity came on September 19, 2020, at UFC Fight Night, Covington vs. Woodley. Chimaev was matched up against Gerald Meerschaert, a seasoned middleweight fighter with over 40 professional fights and a dangerous submission game. This was seen as Chimaev's biggest test yet, as Meerschaert had faced some of the toughest fighters in the division. Many expected a tough, back-and-forth fight, especially since Meerschaert had promised to expose Chimaev's weaknesses. But Chimaev had other plans. As soon as the fight started, Chimaev walked forward with complete confidence, showing no hesitation. Just 17 seconds into the first round, he launched a single, powerful right hand that landed clean on Meerschaert's chin, instantly knocking him out cold. It was over. One punch. One knockout. One of the fastest finishes in UFC history. The MMA world exploded. Fighters, fans, and analysts couldn't believe what they had just witnessed. Chimaev had just knocked out a UFC veteran with a single punch, proving that he wasn't just a dominant wrestler, he had serious knockout power too. The knockout became one of the most viral moments of the year, and Chimaev's hype skyrocketed. Even UFC President Dana White was left speechless, calling it one of the most impressive knockouts I've ever seen. With that one punch, all doubts about Chimaev vanished. He wasn't just a grappling specialist, he was a complete fighter who could finish opponents anywhere. His speed, precision, and power made him an even bigger threat in the UFC. Chimaev had officially arrived as one of the most dangerous fighters in the world. But his journey was far from over. Bigger challenges, bigger fights, and even greater obstacles awaited. And Chimaev was ready for all of them. COVID-19 battle and retirement scare. After Chimaev's spectacular rise through the ranks, many fans and experts started to believe that he was destined for greatness. His relentless fighting style and flawless victories made him a fan favorite, and it seemed like nothing could stand in his way. But fate had other plans. In late 2020, Chimaev was scheduled to face top contender Leon Edwards, a fight that had the potential to propel him into the title picture. The hype surrounding the fight was immense, as Edwards was a veteran in the division, and a win over him would solidify Chimaev's status as one of the most dangerous rising stars in the sport. However, in the weeks leading up to the fight, things took a drastic turn. Chimaev, who had been pushing his body to the limit in training, began to feel the effects of COVID-19. The virus hit him hard, and he experienced severe symptoms including fever, fatigue, and difficulty breathing. This illness would turn out to be one of the most significant hurdles of his career. Chimaev struggled for weeks and his condition worsened. His fight against Edwards was postponed, but the damage was already done. The virus took a heavy toll on him, and Chimaev himself described how he couldn't even get out of bed at times due to exhaustion. The intensity of the illness led Chimaev to experience mental and emotional strain, as he began to doubt his future in the sport. In early 2021, Chimaev made a shocking announcement. He was considering retirement. For someone who had been on such an unstoppable run, the idea of quitting was hard to fathom. The public didn't know what was happening behind the scenes, and for a brief moment, it looked like Khamzat Chimaev's rise had come to an end. The UFC and Dana White quickly intervened, offering Chimaev medical treatment and supporting him through his recovery. With time, Chimaev's health improved and he began to recover from the virus. His relentless drive to return to the octagon and his love for fighting slowly reignited. In mid-2021, after several months of rest and recovery, Chimaev made his long-awaited return to the UFC, stronger and more determined than ever. The specter of retirement became just a distant memory, and Chimaev's comeback story became one of the most inspiring narratives in MMA. The battle against COVID-19 showed the world that even the most unstoppable forces in sports can be humbled by life's unpredictable challenges. However, Chimaev's recovery and return to the octagon also proved that his mental toughness and desire to fight were unmatched. It was clear, nothing would stop Khamzat Chimaev from achieving his dreams. Now, as Chimaev sets his sights on the UFC title, his story has taken on even more significance. It's not just about physical dominance anymore. It's about the strength to overcome personal and professional setbacks, the courage to face adversity, and the unwavering belief that he can achieve greatness no matter the challenge. Khamzat's unstoppable streak. Khamzat Chimaev's journey from an undefeated prospect to one of the most feared fighters in the UFC is nothing short of extraordinary. With a perfect 14-0 record, Chimaev has proven time and time again that he is a force to be reckoned with. Each fight has been another step toward greatness, and now he stands on the precipice of UFC immortality. What makes Chimaev's streak so remarkable is the level of competition he has faced. He hasn't just been beating nobodies, he's been taking on some of the best in the sport and absolutely dominating them. From his first UFC fight against John Phillips to his most recent victories, Chimaev has put on one clinic after another. His combination of unrelenting wrestling, brutal ground and pound, and lightning-fast strikes has left opponents helpless and fans in awe. One of the key reasons for Chimaev's success is his insane conditioning. His cardio is legendary, and he has repeatedly shown that he can fight at an elite level for multiple rounds without showing signs of slowing down. Whether it's in the grappling exchanges or standing and trading strikes, Chimaev has displayed a ceaseless motor that allows him to keep pushing the pace and dominate his opponents from start to finish. Another defining characteristic of Chimaev's unstoppable streak is his ability to finish fights. He has a knack for ending the fight before it even begins, whether it's securing a quick knockout or a dominant submission. His most notable victories, such as his one-punch KO over Gerald Meerschaert and his brutal submission of Li Jingliang, show just how dangerous he is in all aspects of MMA. It's clear that no matter the style of the fight, Chimaev is always capable of finding a way to finish his opponents decisively. As Chimaev continues to cruise through the rankings, he is not just gaining victories, he's building a legacy. His aggressive fighting style, combined with his perfect record, has made him a true fan favorite and a massive draw for the UFC. He's also gained the respect of his peers, with many fighters and analysts calling him one of the most talented and dangerous athletes in the sport today. His 14-0 record is more than just numbers. It's a testament to his relentless drive, unmatched work ethic and fierce mentality. Khamzat Chimaev has shown time and time again that he is a fighter who is willing to go through hell and back to achieve his goals, and his rise through the ranks of the UFC has been nothing short of meteoric. Now, as he prepares for his title fight, Chimaev's unstoppable streak could become the stuff of legend. His undefeated record, combined with his unmatched intensity, puts him in a position to take on the best in the world and claim UFC gold. The question isn't whether he can keep winning, but rather how dominant he will be in his pursuit of the championship belt. Chimaev's streak is far from over. If anything, it's just getting started. The final test, a title fight. For Khamzat Chimaev, the next chapter in his incredible UFC journey is nothing short of historic. A title fight. With a perfect record of 14-0, Chimaev has cleared every hurdle the UFC has thrown at him, and now, it's time for him to prove that he is the best in the world. Chimaev's rise has been fast and furious, but in many ways the title fight represents the ultimate test of his abilities. This is the fight where everything he's worked for will come to a head, the culmination of years of preparation, sacrifice and hard work. UFC gold is the reward for those who can overcome the very best, and Chimaev is on the verge of claiming that prize. What makes this challenge even more thrilling is that Chimaev is not just fighting for himself, he's fighting for a legacy. The welterweight and middleweight divisions are now on high alert, knowing that the unstoppable force they've been hearing about for years is finally coming for the title. Chimaev's reputation precedes him. His wrestling pressure, relentless style and ruthless finishing ability have made him one of the most feared fighters in the world. In this fight, Chimaev is likely to face some of the toughest opponents in the UFC. But if there's one thing Chimaev has shown throughout his career, it's that he thrives when the stakes are high. He has consistently stepped up to the challenge, whether it was when he faced veteran fighters like Gerald Meerschaert or when he made a statement with his record-breaking debut against John Phillips. Chimaev has made it clear that when the bright lights are on him, he performs under pressure. This title fight is more than just another opportunity for Chimaev, it's the defining moment of his career. UFC champions are made in these types of high-stakes battles, and Chimaev has already proven that he has the heart, mind, and body to compete at the highest level. His aggression, determination, and unmatched fight IQ will be crucial in this title run. The beauty of Chimaev's path to the title is that it has been a journey of growth. He has evolved from a dominant wrestler into a complete mixed martial artist, with an explosive striking game, a well-rounded skill set, and a mindset built for champions. This evolution will serve him well as he faces the best the UFC has to offer. But ultimately the title fight will come down to one thing: heart. Chimaev's passion for fighting and his fierce desire to be the best are unmatched. His hunger for success, combined with the lessons he's learned along the way, will give him the edge in what will be the most important fight of his career. The title fight is approaching and Khamzat Chimaev is ready for the challenge. He's fought through adversity, taken on the best, and proved he is undefeated for a reason. Now the next step is to claim what is his, the UFC championship. With his eyes locked on that gold, Chimaev is set to take his place among the greatest fighters the sport has ever known. The evolution of Khamzat. Khamzat Chimaev's evolution as a fighter has been nothing short of extraordinary. What started as a wrestling powerhouse has now transformed into one of the most well-rounded and dangerous fighters in the UFC. His striking has come a long way, and his fight IQ has reached an elite level, putting him on a trajectory toward greatness. When Chimaev first entered the UFC, it was clear that his dominant wrestling skills would be his bread and butter. However, what set him apart from other wrestlers was his fearless mentality and aggressive fight style. Chimaev wasn't just content with controlling his opponents on the ground. He was looking to finish fights, and he did so with an intensity that made him a highlight reel in every bout. But as Chimaev's career has progressed, he has recognized that to truly be a champion, he must continue to evolve. His striking has undergone a major transformation, and now he has become a force to be reckoned with on his feet as well. Training with some of the best fighters in the world has sharpened his skills, and he's become increasingly comfortable exchanging strikes in the stand-up game. His hands have become as dangerous as his wrestling, with his ability to set up punches and land powerful strikes that can end fights in an instant. Perhaps the most impressive aspect of Chimaev's evolution is his fight IQ. Initially, many critics wondered if his all-out, aggressive style would catch up to him. Would his reckless approach leave him open to a counterattack? Could he maintain such an intense pace over the course of a full fight? But Chimaev has proven time and time again that his heart, mind, and instincts are perfectly suited for the highest level of competition. He knows when to push forward, when to brawl, and when to slow things down and control the action. This evolution in strategy has allowed him to dominate opponents in every facet of the game. In addition to his evolving skill set, Chimaev has also become a master of adapting to the specific challenges his opponents present. Each fight is a chess match for him, and he's not just looking for a one-size-fits-all approach. He spent countless hours fine-tuning his strategy and game plan, making sure he's always prepared for whatever comes his way. Whether it's wrestling, striking, or clinch work, Chimaev is constantly evolving and adapting to his surroundings. With all these changes, one thing has remained constant: his confidence. From the very beginning of his career, Chimaev exuded a level of self-belief that was unmatched. As his skills have improved, his confidence has only grown stronger. This mental fortitude will be key as he takes on the elite of the sport and moves closer to his ultimate goal of becoming a UFC champion. Chimaev is no longer just a one-dimensional fighter. He is a complete mixed martial artist, capable of doing it all. His evolution from a wrestling juggernaut to a versatile threat across all areas of the sport has made him one of the most exciting prospects in the UFC. As he continues to refine his skills and sharpen his tools, Khamzat Chimaev is primed for greatness, and his best is yet to come. Bulking for the future. As Khamzat Chimaev continues his rise in the UFC, one of the most noticeable changes is his focus on bulking up to maximize his strength. With a perfect 19-0 record and the taste of championship gold on the horizon, Chimaev knows that to succeed at the highest level, especially in the ultra-competitive welterweight and middleweight divisions, he needs to bring a more powerful and durable version of himself into the octagon. Chimaev's transition to bulking isn't just about adding muscle for the sake of appearance. It's a strategic move to ensure he has the physical dominance to control fights in the later rounds and outpower his opponents. Whether it's maintaining a grueling pace in the welterweight division or bulking up to compete in the middleweight division, Chimaev is making sure he is not just physically imposing, but also capable of withstanding the punishment and pressure of elite competition. The process of bulking is not just about lifting heavier weights at the gym, it's also a carefully calculated plan involving nutrition and conditioning. Chimaev's camp has prioritized a strict diet, ensuring he consumes the right foods to fuel his body, while his intense training regimens help him gain muscle without sacrificing speed or agility. Every aspect of this process is geared toward giving him an edge over his opponents. For Chimaev, strength is not only about muscle mass, it's about using that strength effectively in a fight. Strength in wrestling, in the clinch, and in controlling opponents on the ground can be the difference between winning and losing. Bulking up will allow him to better impose his will and make it more difficult for fighters to get out of his grasp. One of the most dangerous aspects of Chimaev's game is his ability to suffocate opponents with his wrestling pressure, wearing them down until they break. By adding muscle mass, he's making sure that he's always the stronger fighter in these exchanges. His opponents will have a harder time trying to escape his takedowns and reversals, allowing him to maintain dominance for longer periods and push his physical limits. As Chimaev continues to build muscle and strength, he's also developing more power in his striking. His hands have become a more dangerous weapon with each fight, and the added muscle is translating into harder punches and a stronger clinch game. Whether it's landing devastating shots or wearing down opponents with relentless pressure, This focus on bulking is creating a more complete fighter. The beauty of this strategy is that it's personalized to Chimaev's body type and fighting style. He's not just trying to bulk up like a bodybuilder. He's ensuring that every pound of muscle is functional and beneficial to his fight game. This commitment to improving his physicality is a testament to Chimaev's work ethic and his desire to be the best. His body transformation is part of a larger plan to not only become a UFC champion but to dominate at the highest levels of mixed martial arts. By continuing to evolve and perfect his body, Chimaev is sending a clear message. He is not only ready for a title fight, but he is ready to win it and dominate for years to come. His bulking process is a powerful reminder of how dedicated he is to his craft, and it's only a matter of time before the world sees the next level of Khamzat Chimaev, bigger, stronger, and more dangerous than ever. A champion in the making. Khamzat Chimaev's journey from a war-torn childhood in Chechnya to an undefeated record in the UFC is nothing short of extraordinary. But his story is far from over. In fact, it's only just beginning. With each fight, Chimaev has proven that he's not just a contender, he's a future legend in the making. What sets Chimaev apart from many other fighters is his unrelenting hunger for greatness. His perfect 19-0 record speaks for itself. But Chimaev is not the type to rest on his laurels. Every victory is a step toward his ultimate goal, UFC gold. But even that isn't enough for him. Chimaev wants to leave an unforgettable mark on the sport of mixed martial arts. One of the defining characteristics of Chimaev's career is his ability to learn and evolve. In just a few short years, he has gone from an unknown newcomer to one of the most dangerous fighters in the UFC. His wrestling foundation has always been solid, but he's continuously improved his striking, fight IQ, and conditioning. Now, he's not just a powerhouse in the cage. He's a well-rounded fighter with the ability to outwork and overwhelm any opponent who stands in his way. The path to a UFC title is never easy, but Chimaev is built for this moment. His aggressive fighting style, combined with his incredible conditioning and mental toughness, makes him a nightmare for anyone in his weight classes. He's proven time and time again that he can adapt to any style, whether it's out-wrestling his opponents, landing devastating strikes, or overwhelming them with relentless pressure. His ability to dominate opponents in every area of the fight makes him a serious threat to anyone who holds a UFC belt. But Chimaev is more than just a fighter, he's a force of nature. His rise to the top has been fueled by an inner drive and determination that few others possess. It's clear that he's not just fighting for fame or money, he's fighting for something much bigger, to prove that he is the best in the world. As he prepares for his title fight, Chimaev's confidence has never been higher. His undefeated streak is a testament to his dedication and the sacrifices he has made along the way. Now, with the UFC title within his reach, Chimaev stands on the brink of immortality. When the moment comes, there is little doubt that he will be ready to seize it. The world will witness a new champion rise, and his name will be etched in the history books. But what makes Khamzat Chimaev truly special is his relentless mindset. He doesn't see his journey as one of completing challenges. For him, every success is just a stepping stone to a greater legacy. As long as he stays hungry, keeps improving, and maintains his unshakable belief in his ability, there's no limit to what he can achieve. Khamzat Chimaev is a champion in the making, and when he finally claims UFC gold, he will be more than just a title holder. He will be a legacy, a fighter who redefined what it means to be a champion in mixed martial arts.